So, thank you very much for participating and for coming to this event and my presentation. As said, my name is Petros Theocharis, and I'm currently leading the application security team at XM. I've joined XM about 2 years ago, and we started our own journey of secure software development. But before we start, I would like to give you a quick overview, like 2 or 3 bullet points of who I am. I've been working on application security for the past at least 5 years. As you understood, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. Well, it's in the name of the presentation. And I have a really bad taste in humor. So, if you hear a punchline, please laugh so I can feel better. It's really important for me. Oh, and before we start, I know you can see a wizard on your screen, and I know that I don't look like a wizard. I look more like a dwarf or a hobbit, but this is my presentation. I needed a boost, so you can't do anything about it. And today, I will be your guide to this journey. And I mentioned a journey. So today we will not go through a typical presentation, but we'll go through a story and not just frameworks, tools, and boring bullet points. A story of how we at XM strive to embed security into every line of code we produce, every deployment, and every decision we make. Just like a fellowship on an epic quest. This is a presentation inspired by Middle-earth, and this journey will take us from a peaceful lands of DevSire through the dangerous CICD Pass and across the Temple of Metrics. And all the way to Prodder. I told you, I have bad humor. Where threats are real and unforgiving. But we don't walk alone. At XM, we believe that secure software development is a team effort, a fellowship with developers, DevOps engineers, business, security engineers, and all other stakeholders. And of course, our trusty tools all playing a key role in this effort. Somewhere along the way, we will uncover the one vulnerability that tries to rule them all, and we will learn how to contain the power of it. So, welcome to the Lord of Vulnerabilities, the Fellowship of Secure Software Development. This is our story from XM to Middle-earth to the heart of software development. And like all good stories, this one starts in the peaceful lands of the sire of development, where development thrived in peace. The developers were shipping code fast, teams were moving with agility, and the features were blooming like a second breakfast. There were no alerts, no compliance audits, no security champions yelling about boring security reviews. Everything was good, or at least it seemed good. But somewhere in a dusty dependency or a forgotten endpoint, a threat began to arise. And that's where our journey begins. And with every great story, the peace doesn't last forever. We started a happy journey through the DevSire, and now it faces its first real threat. In our world, the world of software development, that threat is a rapid rise of vulnerabilities, misconfiguration, or even supply chain weaknesses. And at XM, we've seen how fast the development lifecycle moves, how easy it is for something to slip through the crack. Maybe an unchecked third-party library, one misused API, one forgotten default password. It has happened to all of us. And we have opened our gates to Mordor. What used to be occasional incidents are now constant headlines. You're probably aware of Log4Shell, Spring4Shell, but a new threat came in play. AI-powered tools that malicious users can use in order to identify vulnerabilities in our system and even exploit those. And those aren't fantasy monsters anymore. They are real. They are growing, and they are targeting our and your production. So, application security should not be a checkbox anymore. It should be our line of defense, our sword. If we don't embed it early in our journey, we will be defending Mordor instead of preventing it. That's why we need a fellowship, a team to stand together and protect our lands. And in secure software development, it's no different. So, from the quiet valleys of DevSire, a fellowship was formed. Our fellowship is made from several roles, but we will focus on the 5 key roles for this presentation. Each one of them has its strengths, their challenges, and their part to play while defending our software from the rising threats we saw earlier. So, first, we have the developers, the hobbits of our story. Humble, close to the source of truth, carrying the burden of the code. And of course, they are the first to face the unknown and need the protection most. Then comes business, the elves, wise, strategic, all seeing the long game. They made them elves. They guide us towards sustainable decisions that protect both our users and our reputation. Then we have security. Our security team plays the role of Gandalf, and we bring the scrolls, we may bring the wisdom, and your developers, most of you, the fire when needed. And of course, we may have some magical tools that we will see in the next slides. We have also the product owners. The product owners carry a map. They are the rangers of modern software. They try to keep the group aligned with a mission. And that mission is to ensure that security and delivery march side by side. And finally, our toolsmiths. They create the magical artifacts that we will see in the following slides. And we use those artifacts in order to help us see what the eyes alone cannot. They give us superpowers, but only when wielded properly. So, this is the team. This is the fellowship. And together, we're not just shipping software, we're defending the future of it. But, of course, not every realm is as lucky as ours in XM. Some teams walk without a fellowship, and the results are, let's say, not that epic. Developers may fight alone, surrounded by alert fatigue and some buried scrolls of false positives. Security shouts from distant towers, offering guidance that arrives either too late or maybe not at all. Tools may be scattered across the land. Those tools are powerful, yes, but unused, forgotten, or misaligned. Business points to faraway roadmaps, while our production burns quietly in the background. So, this is what happens when there is no alignment, no shared story, no fellowship. This is not lack of tools, it's lack of purpose, connection, and coordination. And that's why the fellowship matters. So, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, you may already know that before Frodo set out with the ring, there was a council. At Rivendell, the leaders of Middle-earth gathered, each from different realms with proper different goals, to align around a single shared purpose. And we begin our journey the same way, with what we call the Council of Strategy. Our guide, the Scroll of Sam, OWASP's Software Assurance Maturity Model. SAM is an open source project that we use in order to have structure. It defines 5 core domains that help us assess where we stand in the point of maturity and where we need to grow. Those domains are governance, design, implementation, verification, and of course, operations. So, just like in Middle-earth, no one walks alone. Security strategy is not just the job of a single wizard or warrior. It requires everyone at the table. So before we talk about tools, before we face the monsters, we sit at the council and we decide how we move forward, together, united as one. And beyond the Council of Strategy, the Fellowship descended into the ancient chambers of the Armory, a place where tools of security are not forged by steel, but by code, detection, and insight. Here, each artifact awaits a worthy warrior, wizard, developer, crafted not by blacksmith, but by security engineers and some crazy folks called open source sorcerers. So, we would like to present you our toolset. We have the Sword of Static Truth, known among the mortals as Static Application Security Testing. What it does, it reveals vulnerabilities hidden deep in source code before a single line is ever compiled. Then we have the Dagger of Runtime Watch, the artifact of dynamic application security testing. Agile and probing, it uncovers flaws from the outside, striking while the code runs in our staging or dev environment. Next, we have the Book of Dependencies, better known as software composition analysis. Bound in the history of all open sources, it reveals uninherited weaknesses from third-party libraries, tracing dependencies as far as the scroll goes. And finally, our orb, the Orb of Secrets, the artifact of secret scanning. It seems fall into enemy hands. Each artifact is powerful, but only when used with intention. Those artifacts are not meant to be stored away or used once, but they should be embedded in every path ahead. And of course, those tools are not there to replace the fellowship, they are there to empower it. And so, our fellowship arms itself for the battles yet to come. And we move on to the CICD Pass. Armed with the artifact of security, now our fellowship descended into a narrow, dangerous path, the CICD Pass. This is a gateway between development and production, between DevSire and Prodor. And it's where our fellowship must act decisively. Here, there is no room for delay, no tolerance for mistakes, and each step forward could lead to either secure delivery or disaster. Moving on that path, we first see the gates of code commit. And here, our Sword of Static Truth struck first. It inspected the code for vulnerabilities before they were even committed to the repository. As the fellowship moved on to the next checkpoint, the checkpoint of build, the Book of Dependencies revealed dependencies buried deep into ancient libraries through the power of software composition analysis. At the trial of testing, the Orb of Secrets simmered, exposing hard-coded secrets and hidden credentials before they could escape in the wild. And finally, as we approached the deploy path, the Dagger of Runtime Watch unleashed its probing scans. It simulated attacks on the system, ready to reveal any weakness the enemy might try to exploit. And this wasn't a single battle. It was an ongoing campaign. Tools didn't just stand there guarding the gates. They became part of them. They were integrated in the very structure of our delivery. At CICD Pass, security stopped being a checkpoint and became a companion to the developers. And with every artifact gathered and the previous battle fought, the fellowship faced one final challenge: how to bring order to the chaos. Tools alone were not enough. Each one was powerful, yes, but they spoke in different language, appeared in different times, and required manual interaction, a guided hand. And so the fellowship forged a ring, the ring of automation, not to rule the artifacts, but to bind them together as a single entity, to ensure they would appear when needed and run without delay. This was the moment security became more than a checklist in our world. It became a system. So now, at every code push, the sword of static truth is summoned. With each build, the book of dependency open. Before a test is run, the orb of secrets awakens, and a deploy dust watches from the shadows. And none of it requires manual invocation. It doesn't require to run the test manually. The ring ensures it all simply happens. This is the power of automation, not just convenience, but continuity. Not just orchestration, but trust between different departments. With the ring in place, the fellowship could finally move forward, not burdened by tools, but actually empowered by those. And as the fellowship pressed forward, it became clear that the power of the artifacts alone was not enough. With security embedded now in every pipeline and tools running at every turn, another challenge emerged: visibility. Scan results flowed from every direction, each artifact speaking its own language from its own corner of the realm. And so, at the heart of the world, the fellowship found the beacon of light, a tower that could see all, collect all, and display the truth. From the tower's peak, a crystal eye, not of fear, but of clarity. It watched over the land across. It gathered results from static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, software composition, and secret scanning, binding them into a single centralized view. And this is where vulnerabilities come and become normalized and deduplicated. Context is added to each one of them: what's critical, what's exploitable, and what belongs to whom. And the quests are assigned to the right fellowship members using the appropriate magic messaging tools, such as Jira. And of course, using the beacon of light, we were also able to track remediation, SLAs, and even some risk trends over time. So this is not just a dashboard. This is not just an Excel. It's our command center. Once the beacon of light started working, there were no more scattered logs, no more forgotten alerts or disconnected tools. Now, security teams and developers alike could see what mattered the most and prioritized based on what counted. And of course, act with confidence. The eye that sees all is the foundation of our maturity, not because it protects alone, but because it informs everyone, every stakeholder. With the tower standing, the realm could finally move from reaction to readiness. And of course, our fellowship journeyed further into the realm of secure software development, and they came up on a high place, quiet, glowing, and timeless. This is where they found the Temple of Metrics, a sanctuary not of war, but of wisdom. With its stone columns stood three glowing pillars, each representing the truth that guided every security journey. The first pillar, it was called time to fix, revealing how quickly the realm responded whenever an ability appeared. And of course, swift action means stronger defense. The second pillar was called coverage, and it showed how much of the land was protected by the artifacts, by our tools? How many repos, pipelines, and projects were shielded? The third, maturity, stood the tallest. It reflected not a moment in time, but a story of growth. How far the fellowship had come and how much further they could move on. In this temple, the fellowship learned to look not just what they fought, but how they fought it and how well they could be improved. Because true strength, at least in security, it's not just about what you deploy to production, it's about what you measure. And these metrics are more than numbers. They help us focus our efforts and your efforts. They tell a story we can take back to business, and they ensure we are not just running, but we are heading at the right direction. And of course, our fellowship didn't stop there. The fellowship advanced through the heart of the realm, and they discovered they were not alone. Walking on the sidelines, moving with agility between teams and terrain, the security champions rode the security champions. They were not forced in castles or council chambers. They came from the very teams they now guide, development teams, who had taken up the mantle of security not as a burden, but as a banner. Champions were chosen not just for their knowledge, but for their curiosity, influence, and willingness to learn. Some volunteered. Others, not so lucky, were nominated, but all received training, not just in tools and tactics, but in communication, advocacy, and how to lead from within. And of course, with regular training sessions, they honored their skills. With guidance from the Security Guild, from us, they stayed aligned to the strategy of the company. So champions act as scouts, spotting the risk early during the design. As messengers, they share the story between the other team members. As defenders, because they help embed security thinking where it is needed the most, into the squads, the development teams, and inside the epics and the sprints. So they brought context, trust, speed that, of course, allowed the fellowship to scale without slowing down. In every corner of the realm, security champions lit small torches, one by one, and a culture of security began to arise. So, those security champions assisted us, and then we were close at the edge of the realm, where the code meets the world, and it stands the Tower of Prodor, the gateway to production. It's not a place of conquest or of vigilance. It's the place that beyond those gates, the stakes are real. Live users, sensitive data, and unknown threats. Here, the fellowship doesn't actually fight, but they observe. Of course, our swords are equipped, our scrolls are open, and our magical lenses inspect the live traffic of every API or every traffic actually. And some crystal runes process our data, but our fellowship watches the dashboards, another one traces the runtime flows, and a third one observes the horizon to alert for any sign of breach, latency, or a probable misconfiguration. And this is where observability becomes action, where our alerts meet readiness, where incident response is not a chaos, but a dance, a well-written dance. And as the tower glows with insight, connected to every tool, every path, and every scan, the fellowship fulfills its final duty, to guard what they've built. So, The fellowship returned home, but DevSire was no longer the place they had left. Where once was innocence, now there was awareness. Where once were gaps, there were now tools, security champions, and trust. The artifacts of our journey have not been discarded. We didn't throw them away, but we embedded them. We forged them into our daily work, and some developers may hate us for that. Visible in the banners of Battlecry, but in scrolls and shields, they observe quietly. So security was no longer a stranger in DevSire. It was now part of the village, of the workflow and of the conversations. Developers, of course, still coded. Product owners still planned, but now security champions walked beside them. Tools ran quietly beneath their keyboards, metrics glowed in the background. The quest had ended, but what it left behind was greater than any battle won. It left behind a culture, the most important. One where secure software is not a goal of few, but responsibility of all the stakeholders. And this is actually our success story. This is what it looks like when the fellowship succeeds. This is what secure development culture can be. And before the fellowship part ways, each member received a parting gift, a ranger's pack, filled with tools to aid them with their own secure journeys. These weapons you are currently seeing, they are not heavy weapons or ancient scrolls that you can't understand. They are lightweight and practical artifacts. They are open source, accessible, and ready for any developer, champion, or anyone who is curious out there. Here we can find the Blade of Code Analysis, swift and silent. It's the SemGrep project, you can use it on your own. The Book of Dependencies, the software composition tool. This is a great tool created by OWASP. It's called Dependency Track, and what it can do, it can create a software bill of material for you, so you can perform software composition analysis. We also have an open source crystal orb, and the crystal orb, it's the secret scanning tools. Another great project, an open source one, it's called GitLeaks. It's really customizable and really easy to deploy. We have a Compass, a vulnerability management framework, the eye that we saw earlier. For that, there is a great open source project, it's called Defect Dojo, and you can deploy it on-prem or use the SaaS version, and you can start building your own application security vulnerability management posture system. And of course, there is a Blade of Shadows, our Dust solution. Another OWASP project. Are you familiar with OWASP and what it is? Okay, great. So we also have ZAP. Each one of those tools is simple to carry, powerful in the right hands, and best of all, freely available. So I would suggest to take this with you and start trying to implement it on your own projects. And so our journey ends, and let's do a small recap. We crossed DevSire, when then we braved the shadows of insecure code and we fought at the CICD Pass. And of course, we stood our ground at Prodor. But as all stories go, this isn't really the end, because the fellowship lives on. And at XM, the quest continues with every new feature, every pull request review with care, every secret caught before it's pushed. And of course, our fellowship is growing. Every developer who cares about code quality, every product owner who makes space for security reviews and fixes. It may require some Teams messages. Every security engineer who empowers instead of blocking. They are part of it too. So, building secure software isn't a solo quest. It's not about perfection, but it's about progress that we make together. So I hope that once you go back to your own DevSire, you can bring back what you've seen, start small, keep going, and remember that the fellowship is always with you. And if you'd like to talk about how we do this at XM, the tools we use, the challenges we faced, or how to start your own fellowship, you can come and find us at our booth. It's downstairs, and we would love to share, listen, and help you forge your own path to secure development, or maybe joining ours. So I'd like to thank you once more for coming to this presentation. I hope you found it interesting. Please note that AI was not hurt while developing the slides and the artwork. Uh, and I would like to know if you also have any questions that I could assist you with. No one? Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much.